See, the Lord is coming with fire and his chariots are like a whirlwind. Wow, those are some powerful, intense words from the prophet Isaiah, right? It makes you wonder, how exactly do ancient prophecies like this one actually unfold in our world today?
Well, that's what we're diving into. We're exploring a perspective that challenges one of the biggest expectations in all of Christianity, the Lord's return. It's going to ask us to think, what if the way we picture it, that physical return, is a misunderstanding? What if we're supposed to be looking for a spiritual second coming?
And right away, you can see the conflict. On one hand, you have the most common expectation. Jesus will literally come back, right there on the clouds. But on the other hand, there's this warning echoing through history. The Bible is full of stories about people waiting for a Messiah and then missing him completely. So this view asks a pretty bold question. Could that be happening all over again?
To even begin to answer that, this perspective says we have to start by looking backward. We have to look for a pattern, a kind of blueprint for how God has operated before.
You know that famous line from Ecclesiastes, "What has been will be again. There is nothing new under the sun." The argument here is that this isn't just a saying, it's a core principle for how God works. His methods are consistent. So if you really want to understand the future, you've got to study the past. The pattern is everything. And here's the pattern this interpretation points to as being so crucial. Think about the first coming. God, who is spirit, worked through the physical body of a person, Jesus. So if that pattern holds true, then the second coming would follow the same model. The spirit of Jesus would return to work through the body of another person. It's presented as the consistent way the spiritual realm interacts with our physical world.
This whole idea that a spirit needs a physical body, it leads us straight to the next piece of the puzzle. We have to understand the fundamental nature of God, which is spirit, not flesh.
Okay, so the logic here is actually pretty simple. God is a spiritual being. And for us, for physical humans, seeing a spirit directly is, well, it's incredibly difficult, if not impossible. It's like there's a natural barrier, a communication gap between their realm and ours. So, how do you bridge that gap? This slide lays out the proposed answer, and it's basically a two-part historical process. Step 1 was the first coming, where God's plan of salvation was carried out through the body of Jesus. So the pattern just repeats for step 2, the second coming. The Spirit of Jesus comes back to work through another person. The principle is the same. For a spirit to be seen, heard, and understood by us, it needs a physical representative.
Now, if this pattern is for real, it immediately brings up two huge questions: where and when? So let's get into how this interpretation claims to unlock the biblical signs.
All right, so here are the two big ones: where and when. Now, the Bible doesn't just give you a date and a GPS coordinate, but according to this argument, it's absolutely packed with clues.
Let's start with the when. This perspective points to three major signs right from the Gospels. First, the gospel has to be preached to the whole world. Second, wickedness is going to increase all over the globe. And third, we'll see the arrival of a great tribulation. Think widespread disasters and chaos. The argument is that for the first time in history, all three of these signs are starting to converge in our lifetime.
And to make that first sign a little more concrete, just look at this number. As of 2025, the gospel has reportedly reached over 200 nations. From this viewpoint, that's a massive prophetic box being checked off the list.
Okay, so what about the where? Again, the logic goes right back to that historical pattern. Jesus first appeared among the Jewish people because they were the ones seen as most eagerly waiting for God. So, following that same exact logic, this view suggests the return will happen in whatever place on earth people are most faithfully and eagerly waiting for him today.
But this whole framework, this entire idea, it all hangs on re-examining one critical, world-famous phrase. And that leads us to what this view considers the central, misunderstood prophecy.
And here it is. The Bible says Jesus will return on the clouds. We've all heard it. But what does that actually mean? Is it literal water vapor in the sky, or could it be symbolic? This is the one question that just might unlock this entire interpretation.
And here is the interpretive key. This view argues that in many biblical parables, clouds are used symbolically. They aren't talking about literal clouds. Instead, clouds are a metaphor for a massive group of pure, spiritual people, a whole community of believers.
So, if clouds actually means people, then that prophecy about coming on the clouds gets completely turned on its head. It no longer means a physical body descending from the sky. It means a spiritual return to and through a body of believers on earth.
Now, this interpretation comes with a really serious warning, and it's drawn straight from history. The argument goes like this. Many Jewish people today still pray for the Messiah's coming because 2,000 years ago, their ancestors were expecting a mighty conquering king, not a humble carpenter. Their expectations didn't line up with reality, and so they missed him.
And here's the direct parallel this view draws for today. It poses a really challenging question. If modern believers are rigidly, unbendingly expecting a physical return from the sky, are they at risk of making the exact same mistake? The danger, it suggests, is missing the second coming simply because it shows up in a form they didn't expect, in spirit, through a person.
So, with these different interpretations and these pretty stark warnings on the table, what does it even mean to find the truth? That brings us to our final section.
So what's the ultimate point of all this? What's at stake? Well, this teaching frames it as an evolution, a deepening of humanity's relationship with God. In the Old Testament, the relationship was like a servant to a master. Then the New Testament ushered in the era of being children to a loving father. And the second coming, in this view, promises the most intimate relationship of all, that of the bride and the bridegroom.
This entire perspective really holds up this well-known verse as its guiding star. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. The idea is that the very act of exploring these questions, of examining what we believe and why, that's the path to a deeper understanding, one that can free us from our own preconceived notions.
And so we'll end with the profound question this perspective ultimately leaves each of us with, taken from a hymn. At the end of my journey, will I see the Lord? It's a question that turns this whole explainer right back to you and me, asking us to really think about our own beliefs, our own expectations, and what it is we are truly searching for.